Hey.
Hi, is that you, Hayden?
Yeah. Hey, I've been thinking, I listened to some of the podcasts and I think maybe people think, oh, he's faking it. This is just, he's just hamming up a normal conversation. But actually what's happening is I literally don't know that you're calling me about the podcast, and I'm just in the middle of cooking lunch, and I'm like a stupid dog. I'm like, oh, maybe my friend is calling me about something. Maybe he wants to know about my life, and then it always turns out to be some question about a horrible part of American culture.
Hayden, how's your life?
It's okay. I might go walking around, catch some Pokemon later on, though.
That sounds good. Are you any closer to catching them all?
Always closer every day.
Today's topic on the podcast, it's not strictly an American topic, but it does have some links that we'll get to. But I'm looking at catfishing today.
Yeah.
I was just wondering sort of if you had any experiences with catfishing in your own life.
I don't think that I have been catfished, but I would say that, right?
You would?
No, yeah. Maybe in a chat room there would have been some freakazoid that I just accepted as being a woman that was actually just some man or something. But I never got to the point of being scammed out of any money or and sending nudes of myself. I'm just not young enough. I'm nearly 40, I can't.
Have you ever sent any nudes of yourself out?
I haven't actually. I've never sent a nude. Have you?
Yeah, I have. I have sent nudes. Yeah, not a lot, but it's I have done it.
I feel like I'm beyond the demographic of the nude sending. I've always just been so worried that the instant I take a naked photo of myself, someone is going to immediately jump into Google and it'll be all over the internet. I'm just very terrified about that sort of thing. And you should be worried. You're a celebrity. They're constantly getting hacked and having their nudes leaked all over the internet.
I am not fearful about it anymore because I think AI, the one good thing about AI is if something horrific does get leaked, you can just say, oh, that's just AI, and you're kind of fine then.
Yeah, that's not my penis.
It's not that small.
Yeah, there's an AI penis made to make me look bad. My penis is twice that size.
Really good.
I think the greatest catfishing that I've been exposed to is kind of our friendship. I get catfished every time I get rung up for this show. Like, oh, I could have a really nice conversation with this friend who really cares about my life. And then it's always just like business, trying to get content from the podcast, get Rob to own him afterwards, talk about how stupid he is. That's the greatest catfishing I've ever experienced. And I really pity the young people who are going through it worse, but it's pretty bad for me too.
I'm David Farrier, a New Zealander accidentally marooned in America, and I want to figure out what makes this country tick. Now, I love a good documentary. I try and make them myself now and then, but one of my favorite American documentary directors is a woman called Erin Lee Carr. The daughter of legendary journalist David Carr, Erin now makes some of my favorite documentaries. She turns to some of the darker aspects of America, but not just to trawl through true crime for the sake of it. She always tells her stories smartly and with empathy. In I Love You, Now Die, she looked at the case of Michelle Carter and whether text messages can kill. Her movie At the Heart of Gold saw her unmasking USA Gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar, who was abusing young athletes.
He was so good at being who he was.
I would text him almost daily.
We really loved him.
This is the Olympic doctor.
She's directed over 10 documentaries at this point. That's a lot. And her latest is called Fanatical, the catfishing of Tegan and Sara.
Email addresses had been hacked. They shared passport scans and knew their mom's medical history.
It introduced the idea that it's someone we know.
Fanatical is about two things I'm really fascinated by: the catfishing aspect of the internet, as well as fandom, and how far fans of a thing can go. So, prepare to log in and figure out what's real and what's just make-believe, because this is the catfishing episode.
Flightless, flightless, flightless bird touchdown in America. I'm a flightless bird touchdown in America.
Sort of quite a big allegation that Hayden lobbed at you there, that you do. He's just there for you to tear down.
Hayden,
you've been quite kind to him.
Yeah, I like Hayden a lot. I don't know.
I think you like Hayden more than anyone else on the show.
I mean, I like Roosevelt a lot too.
Yeah, Roosevelt's good. She wasn't picking up this week. I got Hayden because Roosevelt wasn't picking up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I like all of your New Zealand friends.
I have good friends in New Zealand. I do. Now, before we get into Erin's new documentary, I'm curious if you have ever been catfished or been catfished adjacent.
I mean, probably those early days of internet with AOL Instant Messenger.
Actually, do you remember your first time online? Was that a memory you have?
Yeah, I had a dial-up computer in our living room that the whole family shared.
Yeah, it was in the lounge always, right?
Yeah. And we all would log into that.
Yeah.
And it had the crazy parental controls, so you really couldn't do anything on it.
In New Zealand, Extra was our main internet provider, which was owned by our main government-owned telco. And you'd log in to X World, which sounded like a porn site, but it was just this graphical representation of the internet. And I remember one of the first things I went for on the internet was pictures of Jennifer Aniston, because Friends is huge.
Yeah.
And I just remember the pictures would load painfully slowly because they were JPEGs, and they're loaded in bits, but then also really
pixelated,
faded, and
sharper,
and it just made and I also remember the joy of downloading MP3s for the first time on LimeWire, and how you would wait a whole night to get one leaked song.
If your source was good enough to download from.
Yeah, and if they hadn't tricked you and just relabeled some porn as the song you're trying to get, and then all that goes to nothing.
Yeah, so you didn't have American Online? Do you know what American Online is?
No, we missed that. AOL. Yeah, no, we did. We had AOL Messenger at some point.
AOL.
And
then AIM was the messenger.
Yeah. ASL, do you remember that?
ASL, I remember.
Yeah.
Did yours have the crazy dial-up noise?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you had
connecting?
The modem. It was just the most annoying noise of all time. I just remember the internet being so thrilling, and the idea, I didn't quite understand the scope of what it could be, but I knew I could get pictures of Jennifer Aniston. I knew I could look for sightings of the Loch Ness Monster and of UFOs, which made me feel like an FBI agent or something. And I remembered the first time in a chat room talking to people I didn't know, and there was that feeling of I'm talking to a girl.
Yep.
And they're definitely a girl, and that felt as exciting as getting a love letter that was passed around the classroom. It was genuine.
You do the AASL and then hope that it was 13-year-old female in
You're like, wow,
New York.
Ridiculous.
We were 13 at the time.
No, just to be clear. But it was, and you believed it.
Yeah.
There was not a shadow of a doubt that it was who you were talking to. The idea that someone would trick me had not entered my mind.
Yeah. There was also a period with AOL where when you would email someone, if the email address existed, it would go through. If it didn't, it would tell you that this is not a real email address.
Oh, right.
So I remember one of the first things I did, I had Rob Hollis at AOL.com.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
And my name is spelled weirdly.
It still confuses me sometimes when I go to type it.
So I emailed Rob Hollis, spelled Hollis, at AOL.com just to see, does this person exist? The email went through, and it was some older dude in Australia that I was emailing with that had the same name as me.
And he was like, wow, this is so interesting. Where are you? You've got a very similar name.
Yeah. I don't think we corresponded too long, but I remember very specifically emailing with this man in Australia that had the same name as me.
That's so pure. That's a nice aspect to the internet.
Yeah.
That's the internet being good and kind, which it was at some points.
Yeah. And then do you remember, so did you have AIM?
No,
AOL Instant Messenger?
No, we didn't. We had ICQ.
Okay. Well, there was a period in junior high where it was a really big thing where everyone was messaging. You'd have away messages.
What is that?
You would set it when you weren't at your computer.
Yeah, right.
But people would put song lyrics or jokes. It was really cringy stuff. And then you'd have your profile as well where people would put inside jokes. That was also really cringy.
So I'm 41 and I feel I'm starting to get to that age where I know I'm falling behind with many internet trends.
TikTok.
But I feel so grateful that I was alive for that transition from no internet and no cell phones and transitioning in real time when I was at an age where it was kind of fun and not too scary. Transitioning into that world.
Innocence to it at that point.
Yeah, completely. It was nothing but excitement. And the idea of catfishing would have never even entered my mind at that stage.
Did you guys have sidekicks?
No.
Sidekick phones?
No,
back then?
What's that?
They were like one of the first smartphones, I think.
Yeah.
It was kind of like BlackBerry, but for younger, like it was like a music scene thing.
That sounds amazing.
It had a keyboard. It was a little brick and the screen would flip up and it had a keyboard that you could type.
It sounds great.
It had internet on it.
Did you have one?
I had one.
Yeah, right. My first cell phone, the brand was Alcatel. I don't know if that existed elsewhere, but I do remember like very proudly having it clipped onto my pants. And that I swear to God at the time it was like the cool thing to do. But in hindsight, I probably was just always a massive, massive nerd.
You had your pocket protector with it
all of that
clipped into it?
All of that. You got down trail all the time.
All your pens.
Did you have that in schools in America, but getting down trail where people just pull your pants down as a joke?
They called that depancing.
Depancing. Yeah, I think in New Zealand it was the down trail.
I know of it as a thing, but it wasn't really something that was rampant at my high school or junior high.
Now, as far as catfishing goes, both of us are useless because we haven't been catfished at all, which is a nice thing. Not that we fucking know of. I hope no one's playing like a long game with me. I was at a dinner, the same dinner actually that I spoke to people for Olive Garden about. But while I was there, I also just went around the table to see if any of them had been catfished.
I've been the catfisher.
Really?
Yes. Because when I got back on like the gay dating apps Grindr, I was scared to like talk to people. So I used fake photos to kind of like scope out. Like I never met up with anyone. I never like misled anyone, but I was just kind of like using other people's photos to ease into the field, and that's it.
I mean, I've definitely hooked up with people who have arrived older than their photos let on.
I guess dating apps are a very common type of catfishing, right?
I would say. I mean, I think the rotation of your imagery, if you don't update your images in like the next year or so, you're probably a catfisher, unless you don't age in the year. I have stressful years, so I look different than 2023.
I have a friend whose mom got scammed from this person who was pretending to be a Hallmark movie star. Oh. And she was duped into thinking she got in a relationship with them and got a bunch of money from her.
Have you ever had any experience with catfishing?
Yes, I have. Mine was as a child. We all... When AOL was a thing, we would all go in chat rooms, right? And so I went into a chat room and I thought that I met Britney Spears. And so we were talking every day. And she had started to help me with my homework. Brittany. And she actually helped me write this essay on, I think it was like U.S. history, and I got such a good grade. I had to read it in front of the whole school. I was entered into a contest.
How long did you think, how old were you?
11, 10.
And how long did you think you were talking with Britney Spears?
The whole entire time.
How, like months or weeks?
Yeah, months. We're talking every day. I ask her for a little help. I send her stuff. Like whatever,
This is also the most pure catfish ever. Like, did they ever get anything out of you looking back? Or were they just literally like a buddy?
Probably friendship, right? That's the thing.
You didn't send Britney nudes or anything?
No, just homework.
When did you realize that you were perhaps not in a friendship with Britney Spears?
She changed her username to Britney Snow. And then she confessed to me that she wasn't Britney Spears.
Because she was Britney Snow instead.
Yeah, and she's now friends with Brittany Snow. I hadn't thought about dating app catfishing until then, and I think someone called it at their dinner salmoning. It's like a more mellow form of catfishing. You're not there to trick. If you're going to meet up with someone, you're going to have to own up to the fact that you were slightly misrepresenting yourself.
Yeah.
It's catfish adjacent, whereas a catfish, often you're never going to reveal yourself at all. Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from True Nutrition. Now, this is going to sound weird, but I don't love chewing. I love smoothies and I love drinking things. And I've been looking for a protein powder to throw in with a very specific thing that I do. I have like ice, I have banana, and I have been looking for a protein powder to add to the mix. And True Nutrition is it. You know how I knew it was for me?
I bet there was a New Zealand component.
There was. There is New Zealand grass-fed whey in there. You can basically go onto their website and customize the mix. And I currently have probably my favorite protein powder I've ever ordered. Now, it's no secret that many health supplements contain fillers and even harmful chemicals. That's why I'm also really excited to talk about True Nutrition. It's a company founded on relentlessly sourcing the highest quality ingredients. A third party tests those ingredients and then first party tests them on site to further ensure purity. This means what's in the package is exactly what it says on the package.
And unlike most supplement brands that focus on marketing a product that's manufactured elsewhere, True Nutrition manufactures its own products while marketing takes a back seat. True Nutrition was formed to provide protein powders and supplements with absolutely no fillers, no additives, no gluten, and most importantly, no BS.
That stands for no bullshit. True Nutrition knows it can be incredibly difficult to find the right protein powder to match your body and fitness goals. That's why they let you create your own fully custom protein powder mix with the exact ingredients you want based on your activity, taste, diet, and goals. I found the website super simple to use, and I really liked creating my own mixes in the amounts that I wanted. You can also see your nutrition facts in real time as you create your mix. This truly is sports nutrition designed by you.
You can finally stop worrying if your supplements are doing more harm than good. For a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off their entire order when they use code BIRD. That's 15% off your order at truenutrition.com with the promo code BIRD.
Hi, Flightless Bird listeners. I've got an incredible new show to share with you called How to Destroy Everything. It's hosted by Danny Jacobs and Darren Grodsky. This podcast is part true crime, part comedy, and it's absolutely binge-worthy. It tells the true story of Danny's dad. He's a narcissist who wreaked havoc on a childhood, a marriage, a family, and even an entire community. He sued everyone in sight. He got banned from restaurants, inspired a support group of people he traumatized. He hacked emails, forged signatures, and even won a US Supreme Court case.
Each week, Danny and Darren explore the hilariously tragic life of Danny's father, unraveling secrets from his past as they explore the present. They also dive into Danny's journey towards fatherhood, examining how he attempts to reconcile his own childhood. With real interviews, narrative recreations, and stunning sound design, How to Destroy Everything offers a truly unique experience in the podcast world.
And now, here's a quick teaser for How to Destroy Everything.
Richard Jacobs was a complicated man.
Richard was quite smart, probably a genius.
He could have really changed the world.
To the United States Supreme Court. Mental health issues. Narcissism would be the biggest.
But he was also my dad. This is How to Destroy Everything, a journey into the past along with my best friend.
Hey, Danny.
As we try to answer the most important question of all.
What if you're like your father?
Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you remember when you found out about what catfishing was? I think for me, it was just that MTV TV show.
For me, it was the documentary.
Yeah,
the doc. I still, weirdly, for this episode, I still haven't watched a single episode of the MTV series, which I probably should. But that film, I remember, it was almost like Blair Witch, where the marketing was so mysterious and thrilling. I got so hyped with that documentary. And it was, if you haven't watched that film, you should, because it's pretty incredible.
Is it the same guys that did the TV show?
It's actually a deeply good question. I want to say no, because it felt like a very different vibe.
And that's what got you into documentary making, was this catfishing documentary?
Close, right, that and Louis Theroux. So Catfish the film, 2010, directed by Henry Joost and Ario Schulman. Oh, and it involves a young man, Nev. And Nev is the guy from the show Catfish.
Okay.
This is good
I think
live
I saw
research.
that first, and then
okay, so
it became
he's
the TV
the
show.
main talent in the film. He goes on and makes a show, becomes a huge celeb in uncovering catfish stories.
Got it.
Okay, I'll watch the show.
I mean, I think they brought it back.
I want to watch the pilot. I want to watch the very first episode of that.
I'm sure the quality of it's great.
It can be shocking going back and watching old shows, just like even the resolution that it's shot in.
That's what I meant.
You're like, holy shit. You're like, oh my God, it's 4:3 and I can like barely see what's going on. The other person at that dinner table mentioned how their parent thought they were, or someone they knew was in a relationship with someone. I've heard about that happening quite a few times. Just like literally in the last few months, people have talked about parents or loved ones that have fallen to, often older people who are lonely, falling into these schemes, which is pretty alarming if you have a parent who's fallen into a trap like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're just being preyed on by the internet. It's crazy how bad that stuff. I get those texts all the time now of like, got a UPS package waiting for you, just need to confirm the address. And
have you had the ones where it is someone saying, oh my God, is this Rob? I met you at that party last weekend. Or it won't be your name. It'll be like, oh, James, oh my God, I missed you at that party. Those ones are kind of fascinating because I was probably a little bit like you. I got a few of those and I started engaging with them and replying. Because, you know, you're like, ha, 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 you're the catfisher. I'll shit with you.
For the record, I don't engage with the ones that I get.
You don't at all? I thought you said on another episode you like replied to a few of them.
No, I know someone that will engage with them and
not you.
Try to double down and like turn the con back on them.
Yeah, that's right. It was your buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have been guilty of doing that with those tech scams that you get. Until I found out there's an amazing podcast called Search Engine that covered it. And I think John Oliver did as well. And that particular scheme is called pig butchering. There was a piece on Wired about it that has now made me realize you should never engage or reply just because it makes you a terrible person. Just reading from this Wired story, for years, China-linked criminals have trafficked people into gigantic compounds in Southeast Asia where they're forced to run scams, held against their will, and beaten if they refuse instructions. I was shocked when I found out about this. Around 200,000 people from at least 60 countries have been trafficked to compounds largely in Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos over the past 5 years. However, as Wired reporting has shown, these operations are spreading globally.
What are they getting? It's like a money
It's
farm?
a financial scam. So they basically get onto you, form a relationship, and then they'll get you to invest in some kind of scheme. Crypto schemes are the current thing. Criminal networks in the region earned up to $37 billion last year. So the thing is, like, you get these things. My first thought was, you piece of shit, you're trying to scam me, I'm going to fuck with you. No, you're just fucking with someone that is in a compound, probably being beaten, and you giving them shit back is just, it's not doing any good for anyone. So that would be my one bit of advice I've learned, is just don't engage, because you're not fucking with the right people. You know, you're not screwing with the people at the top, you're screwing with someone in a fucking cell.
Yeah.
The other thing I quickly wanted to mention before we talk to Erin Lee Carr and the subjects of her doc, who, by the way, are Canadian, which is very funny because I do keep getting Canadians and Americans confused. I watched a documentary on Netflix last night called Sweet Bobby, My Catfish Nightmare, and it's set in the UK, but it's based on a podcast, and the podcast is a lot better than the doc, but if you just want to watch something for 80 minutes, the doc's kind of interesting. And basically this woman, it's so complicated as all catfish stories are, but she thought she was in love with a man she'd met. Suddenly he friended her on Facebook, eventually said on Facebook, oh my God, I've been attacked while I've been overseas and I'm now in witness protection. So my voice is a bit different because I've been shot. They start up, I think, a 5 to 8 year relationship online. Eventually she tracks the actual guy down, arrives at the door where he's with his wife and infant child. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? She's like, why are you pretending that we haven't been in a relationship for 8 years? And spoiler alert, in the next 10 seconds, but it turns out his cousin, someone that he knew very well, had been doing the entire thing.
Oh, so it was his identity.
His identity, cousin using his identity and just messing with this woman for years.
Yeah.
It's intense.
I have a friend, he made a movie about being catfished by his dad.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he didn't have a great relationship with his dad, and his dad took on the identity of a girl that he pretended to be, and they had a relationship.
Wait, so let me get this straight. His dad pretended to be a woman online and then got into a relationship with him, aka his son.
Yes.
Holy shit.
He made a movie about it. Some of it was beefed up for dramatization.
Oh, so there's a drama based on something that happened.
It's called I Love My Dad. It's James Morosini. He wrote, directed, stars in it.
Right.
And Patton Oswalt plays his dad. And they do this fun thing where, like, they have an actress playing... I won't give away too much, but they have the actress playing it, and they're showing scenes of him, like, texting with the girl, and they're reenacting these things, and then they'll cut to, like...
cut to the dad.
Patton Oswalt being the one instead.
Oh, incredible.
It's great, yeah.
Holy shit, that's a lot. Being catfished by one of your parents is a whole other thing. I guess my only personal experience with catfishing was the Tickle doc I made. I guess that was a catfish because when I reached out to the tickling company, I heard from a bunch of women, like a lawyer and a producer, and they all ended up being a dude in New York. And I remember when I was first communicating with them, I was...
kind of turned on because women were talking to you?
I was incredibly turned on. Yeah, absolutely. It was like Jessica Alba being downloaded on the internet again, or like Jennifer Aniston's JPEGs downloading.
Weirdly, his lawyer is Jessica Alba.
It was so strange.
She was handling all the correspondence.
I didn't put that in the film. But no, there was that thing where even though I was deeply suspicious of the way these people were talking to me, when I got an email from like Debbie Kuhn, I was like, oh, you're probably a woman. That just is there by default. And it's amazing how powerful still, even in 2024, when you see someone's like a name and an image, you just go, oh, that's them.
Well, you don't think people are capable of such deep levels of manipulation. And I think that's a good thing, that we don't assume people are trying to manipulate us at that level at all times.
Yeah, completely. It's not a behavior you would exhibit, so you're not expecting it to be put back at you. Yeah. That's the thing. It comes from a pure place, and that's why we can all get taken advantage of. Now, in the documentary that I'm about to play, we had Erin Lee Carr, a director that we both love a lot. We had her in, and we had Tegan and Sara in the studio, who are a Canadian pop folk duo. Is that a good description? Pop duo?
Yeah, I don't know if I throw folk in there. But
don't put folk in there.
Yeah.
I'm just...
they're like an indie... Yeah, they're an indie rock band.
Indie rock band. So yeah, we had Erin Lee Carr, a documentary maker we both love, and her documentary subjects, Tegan and Sara, in to talk about the film, which is very much about catfishing. It's about 1 p.m. and Rob's little podcast studio is full of bodies. Documentary maker Erin Lee Carr is here, as well as musicians Tegan and Sara. Then there's one of the documentary's producers, music journalist Jenny Eliscu. Then there's a publicist from Hulu, the streamer who's putting the doc out, and there's another publicist too, I think. And then there's a makeup and hair person because wires got crossed and Disney, who owns Hulu, thought Flightless Bird was an on-camera thing, when no, we're just really low-key and do audio only. Anyway, eventually, everything had settled down and we got into it.
I'm Tegan. I'm one half of the band Tegan and Sara, and I am very susceptible to catfishing, as it turns out.
I'm Sara, Tegan's sister.
And I have to be here contractually. I'm just kidding.
I'm not. It turns out I'm not good at catfishing. Maybe I should catfish.
If you don't know Tegan and Sara, they're identical twin sisters. And they've also been making pop music together for about 25 years now. You probably know some of the songs. If not, here's one of them, Closer.
Here comes a breath before we get a little bit closer. Here comes a rush before we touch. Come a little closer.
The sisters have a hugely passionate fan base all over the planet, which is part of how they got sucked into a catfishing wormhole. And they've been stuck there ever since, literally for decades. It's a story that got the attention of Erin Lee Carr. Erin, how did you come to the story? Because I don't want to put you in a box, but you do some pretty gnarly true crime storytelling. I'm curious what attracted you to this particular story. Because I don't like, spoiler alert, no one's going to die.
Yet.
But it gets pretty intense.
I was developing things with Jenny Eliscu, who I did the Britney versus Spears project with, and she was so instrumental and such an incredible investigator and so emotionally tuned in that I knew I wanted to work with her again. And we were on the phone one day, and she pitched me this first idea, and then she was like, yeah, do you know the band Tegan and Sara? I was like, do I know the band Tegan and Sara? Yes, of course. They're not going to say anything more about Fandom. But I was like, that is incredible. And I was lucky enough to Zoom with Tegan and have her tell us the whole story because she had written this beautiful document. And I just really thought there is a film here. And it takes place on the internet, which is not the most cinematic of places.
It's the hardest place to tell a story.
As sweet David understands. But yeah, I just knew it would be something that would live inside a documentary.
Okay, so the documentary tells a story that's also the story of the internet in a way. Like, this was a band that was getting started as the internet was getting started as well. This is back in the day when you'd get online using a modem, hogging your parents' phone lines so you could make a website.
We graduated high school in 1998. And my mom had like an old computer and it was on dial-up. And the first thing that Sara and I did when we started our band out of high school was to register our domain name and make a website. A friend of mine was a aspiring graphic designer and made us a website, and we paid him like a couple $100 and we got an email. It was like, whatever, info@teganandsara.com. And that was my first job, really. I worked at a coffee shop in the morning, but in the afternoons I would come home and I would answer fan mail. And all of our demo tapes and eventually our CDs that first year that we were a band all had the email address on it.
Which is wild.
Yeah. The honest truth is that it didn't feel very personal. I saw myself as like coming home from my coffee shop job to work in my admin job in the afternoon, where I would answer inquiries to the Tegan and Sara website, and then I would send packages to festivals that I'd found online, asking them to let us come play. And so that was my first interaction with the internet. I never went to chat rooms.
Well, so Tegan says, but Sister Sara disagrees.
Not to like put you on blast here, but like you absolutely were using that ICQ program to talk to your best friend in London. Oh yeah. You were doing more than just admin. You were socializing absolutely with someone you knew.
But they mainly saw the internet as a way they could connect with their fan base. While a lot of other groups were ignoring the internet or just mystified by it, Tegan and Sara, they dove straight in.
Over the course of the first couple of years of our career, that was how we interacted with fans. People would write us and ask for headshots or ask for like bumper stickers or whatever merch items we had, and we'd fulfill the orders. And we cultivated relationships in a weird way with some of the diehards that would email. But I'd say it was about year 3 or 4, so probably like 2002, 2003, that we started to hear about, oh, there's chat rooms and there's these things like LiveJournal. Like we started to hear about spaces where people would go and talk about music and us.
It was around that time, in 2001, that something weird happened. A fan got in touch with their manager saying that someone online was saying they were Tegan, a claim that was backed up by the fact whoever it was had a bunch of Tegan's personal information. Fans were being fooled by this stuff.
The first knowledge of this was that a fan had reached out to our managers and said, oh, somebody's been talking to Tegan and has received demos and some really weird stuff that is red flaggy. We just want to like check in and see if this is true or not. And it obviously was not Tegan. And so we knew right away. People had pretended to be us before, and people lie about us all the time. I cannot tell you how many times people come up and be like, you were roommates with my cousin in college. And I'm like, amazing. I didn't go to college. I was never a roommate with anyone.
Was not there.
No, like people fib. They think you're never going to actually meet the person. So initially, the thing that scared me was not that somebody was pretending to be Tegan. What scared me was that they had real stuff. They had real photos, real demos, real documents that would have had to come from hacking into email addresses, or in this case, the iDisk, which back then was the iCloud of our world. So we knew somebody had infiltrated our personal world in a way that was very new. And that was very scary. And that was about 2011.
So someone online was pretending to be Tegan and had all of Tegan's stuff.
We knew within a few weeks that it was a really big problem.
Because whoever was pretending to be Tegan was actively catfishing a bunch of their fans in America and the UK and over in my part of the world.
Sarah and I got off a plane in Australia, actually. I think it was Brisbane. We'd flown over there and there was a gaggle of teenage-aged people. And they were like, we were talking on Skype with you and you told us to come to the airport and meet us here. And I was literally like, you guys, I was on an airplane. Like, I wasn't Skyping with you. What are you talking about?
That's such a surreal thing to hear.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Flightless Bird is brought to you by Helix Sleep. Now, sleeping is one of my favorite things in the world. It's probably one of your favorite things as well. I've never met someone that doesn't like sleeping. Maybe a newborn baby, that's about it. Now, I'm not sure if you follow the baby pygmy hippo on social media, Moodang. I think I'm saying that name right. The name translates to bouncy pork, which I find very funny. Anyway, he's this incredibly greasy, incredibly cute hippo, and there's a lot of video of him on the internet of him sleeping, which almost makes me want to cry because it's so cute. My point is, I like sleeping. I like watching Moodang sleep almost as much as I like sleeping myself. And I think the only way my sleep could be improved anymore is if Moodang was in the bed with me, which sounds weird now I say it. Anyway, this is an ad about beds, and I love sleep, and I love my Helix mattress, which I sleep on. I found out about this mattress brand via this podcast. I went online and I ordered it and I tried it, and yeah, I love it. I've had a lifetime of kind of shitty mattresses. You might be in that situation too. And getting a Helix mattress has just shown me even more how bad those mattresses were. Good God. I love my Helix sleep mattress, and I'm really glad I heard about it, and I'm really glad I ordered it. And for someone that has a slightly dicey back, having a supportive mattress for me has really saved my life. I took a quiz, it got sent to my door. It's the right kind of mattress for the way I sleep. And probably the only way my sleep could be improved now is if I had Moodang in the bed with me, although he's a very loud snorer, so probably not. Anyway, if you want a good mattress, a great mattress in fact, then Flightless Bird listeners receive 20% off all mattress orders. You just go to helixsleep.com/bird. That's helixsleep.com/bird. There's no Moodang thrown in, but you do get a really good mattress. Flightless Bird is brought to you by Rocket Money. Now, since arriving in America, the number of subscriptions I have has gone way, way up. I try to keep up with TV and movies and pop culture, and so I end up on every streaming service known to man. Then I forget I have them, I stop watching them, and the money keeps leaving my account. I'm sick of it, and you're probably sick of it. And Rocket Money can help you by finding subscriptions you've forgotten about or even maybe paid for twice. They can find it, and they can cancel it for you. And if your subscription costs have gone up, Rocket Money can tell you. The simple fact is, managing finances can feel really complicated and time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be. Rocket Money simplifies everything, making it easy to see exactly what's happening with your finances, track your spending, and give you full control over it, right from your phone. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can see all your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money's going. For any you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. And Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a very clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. The new goals feature also automatically saves money for you without you having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money makes it easy. And it'll even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. They automatically scan your bills and find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with the customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in cancelled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/bird. That's rocketmoney.com/bird, rocketmoney.com/bird. So many catfishing stories are about the person being catfished, but what made this so weird was the realization their identity was being used to do the catfishing. And as producer Jenny explains, the catfishing went on for a really long time.
There's a person that we spoke to who was a victim of fake Tegan, who is among the people who did not want to be in the film, and this woman in particular was really damaged by her relationship with fake Tegan and spoke to fake Tegan for 10 years.
Tegan and Sara termed whoever it was fake Tegan, or Fegan for short.
Stalking is interesting and upsetting and like something I would want to intervene on in a journalistic way. And then I got this fake Tegan story, which is so much more complex than just a straightforward stalking. This other behavior of the impersonation, but also fan-on-fan crime.
What makes this story so weird is that whoever was doing the catfishing wasn't out for financial gain. They just wanted to create these really personal relationship with Tegan and Sara's fans. That's all it was. It was all psychological.
From the first night that I found out about Fegan, for the next 2 weeks, I would push the dresser in my bedroom in front of the door because I lived in a sketchy apartment in Echo Park and had just moved to America. And I couldn't afford any sort of additional security or measures. And so I would just sleep with my dresser pushed in front of the door. There was lots of really uncomfortable parts of this that affected me too. I mean, they definitely were able to access tons of private stuff about what was going on in my life. And it was acute trauma of this certainly falls on Tegan, but our world is incredibly enmeshed. We are together 250 plus days a year. Whatever is happening to Tegan is affecting me too. Because of the nature of the documents that they had, like our passport scans, like they had
our addresses,
our address, our daily routine. They would have our tour books, those kinds of things. We knew that it was somebody who had access in a way that we'd never experienced before. And of course, our first thing was, should we be afraid? And then also you do think, okay, so if they have all this information, can they run a financial scam? Can they steal our money? Can they do something more sinister? So once we realized it was so insidious, we always called it digital bed bugs. We could not figure out how the hell to get this person out of our stuff. And it would be little things too. Like I remember changing all of our email addresses and then a few weeks later realizing that Fegan knew my new email address and had taken that email address and just created an email address with one letter that was different. So it still looked exactly like my email address and had started up a phishing scam with that email address. So like they knew that I had changed my email address and then went and like started phishing again. We felt so stupid.
And,
like we were so behind all the time. And that first couple of weeks, we didn't know how the leak had happened. And so there was just an enormous amount of anxiety that it was someone we knew.
This made the sisters and their entire team really paranoid. Because this was the early days of the internet, hacking was less talked about, and because the information was so personal, they thought it was someone in their inner circle who'd got it. As Erin made the documentary and talked to various victims all across the planet, she was blown away by the volume of emails that had been exchanged.
When I saw the amount of emails that fake Tegan had made, this was not a financially motivated crime. This was, I want to be Tegan Quinn. I want to know what it feels like. It's hard to understand how somebody could do this, but also how much time and how much this took as a part of their life. But it also, like many of my film subjects, kept turning and turning and turning like a Rubik's Cube. And I couldn't really get all the red together or the white together. There were still pieces missing until the very end.
In the documentary, this all escalates into this really tense scene, a conversation with Tegan, Erin, and the person I think was probably the person behind it all, Fegan. I mean, you can watch the doc and decide for yourself, but whatever you think, it's just this really arresting conversation. There's a particular scene in the film where you're talking with potentially fake Tegan. It's an insane conversation to watch because it's moving in real time in such a deeply unusual way. Do you feel like you're still a bit head-fucked from that, or is that something you're through?
I feel like Erin and I we talk about it every single time we see each other, so I don't think we're over it.
You're like, what happened?
Yeah, I think that was right around the time where I had my final break, where I was like, this is very bad for my health. What's happening here? Yeah. Like I was, oh God, that made me feel really emotional to say. Yeah, I was in this weird space after that for like a month. It doesn't matter if this person is fake Tegan or not. This person did some really crappy things to me, and they're one person out of a lot that did that. And they were mean to each other. They hurt other people. Yeah, I don't know. I got very overwhelmed after that. I felt this is bad for my health. This is not good.
The chaos fake Tegan caused is hard to get across. They ended up turning fans against each other and then fans against the real Tegan. And it turned the real Tegan against the fans who'd been riled up by this fake person making everybody feel insane.
A lot of these victims didn't ever consider how this might have made me feel or how it might have affected me, and that they were living with this false idea that I didn't care that this happened to them. So by default to me. Like,
and you couldn't have cared more.
I couldn't have cared more, that this haunted me and changed so much fundamentally about my life and my experience. I mean, it's just an amazing moment. And so when Erin said the edit, I was like, okay, that was good. I'm glad we did that. But it took like a month for me to recover. I mean, I described it to Sarah. I called her afterwards and I was like, I feel like my head went into a blender. I like had nightmares all night. We like immediately left the house we were staying at and went to the desert. I was like, I need to be somewhere more secure. The house we were staying at didn't have locks on the doors. It's another documentary. But so many documentaries to do. But I was like,
so far.
I was just like, I feel unsafe. Like it was kind of like it just brought me back to when it first happened.
It's the creepiest elements of the internet all in full force, starting in the early 2000s and continuing to this day. As in, it's not over. Fake Tegan is still out there, still doing their thing. And the maddening thing about all this is that the original hack, it wasn't some sophisticated thing. It was barely even a hack. As producer Jenny points out, it was just the early days of the internet and people having really shitty passwords.
The idea of how it happened is just that this was so long ago that we were all choosing dumb passwords and using the same dumb password for everything. And there was no two-factor authentication. And legitimately, the management, the passwords they had were probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something. And it was the same for everything. And once you got one, you were in everywhere. Oopsies.
Tegan and Sara, 1996.
Yeah, it just wasn't, you were not thinking about security back then at all. And once Fake Tegan had all that material, they could dine on that literally for years and years and years. The other thing this documentary does is look at fandom and the changing relationship between fan and artist. When Tegan and Sara started, things were small. Their fan base was small. But as things grew, things did get more difficult, and they see the catfisher as being almost symbolic of a much bigger problem.
How did that impact connecting with fans after that? Because being an independent band, that's such an important component.
Yeah, we were about to put out Heartthrob. I mean, we'd had really intense fans now for years through the success of So Jealous in 2004 and 5 and then The Con in 2006 and 7. We had moments where we felt the intense, pervasive attention and fandom. It was a slow build to get to this moment where the Fake Tegan thing kind of pushed us over the edge, where we were like, hey, trust nobody. We're going to start to have security at VIP, no more free-for-all. Our tour manager and production manager were like, absolutely no more stopping outside the venue, no more stopping outside the bus, no more letting people anywhere near you guys unless there's security close by. We just started to implement all of these security measures. All these things, the Fegan thing, the crazy deep dark fan message boards that were upsetting us, some of the physicality that was happening at shows that were making us feel nervous. It was this time where we had to say, either we have to really, really change our boundaries and make ourselves feel safe and protected, insulated, whatever, or I don't know if I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing it. That all was happening at the same time. Like 99% of our fans were like lovely people. And I was like, this is taking too much of my energy. I don't want to make it seem like we were suddenly allergic to our fan base. We weren't able to ignore the part of our fan base that was scaring us. We have boxes in our storage unit that are labeled weird stalker fans.
So yeah, back when they started, before Facebook and Twitter and TikTok, they mostly adored the internet. Today, in 2024, they're not so sure. Not because the platforms have changed, but because people's attitudes have shifted so much.
Over the last couple of years, one of the big takeaways for me, and I do agree with Tegan, we have learned how to cope with all of this celebrity, fame adjacent kind of reality of being in the band that is very recognizable. Some of that is like a defense mechanism, and some of that is just getting older and realizing that what people say about you on the internet is not your business. You don't have to spend a ton of time thinking about it or looking at it, and there's almost nothing productive to be done about it, as far as I'm concerned. And I am not in charge of fixing the internet, nor do I want to be. Please don't. I don't want that job. I just learned. Erin, you want the job?
I just learned.
I will take it.
Can you fix the internet? I don't want to fix the internet.
I can do
I have
anything.
no good ideas about it except turn it off. If there's like some guy guarding the master plug, I'd pull it as soon as possible.
As a music journalist, there's a lot of conversations at the moment about how the relationship between fans and celebrities. And I think that conversation's been had more and more now. Do you think that is changing? We're in this moment of change where we're sort of reassessing that relationship between a fan and an artist?
I wish it was something that I thought was going to change. I mean, I just think that it's so ingrained in us so much for so long before the internet existed, this kind of parasocial relationship that fans have with the thing that they admire, and this sense of the twofold thing of not being able to relate to a celebrity or a public person you admire, and also wanting to knock them down a notch and objectifying them. And the internet has made that spread in ways and get worse in ways that we couldn't have imagined. But I just think it's what we want from public people should change. I would love for it to change. But I think there's something in the psychology that is maybe unchangeable because it requires for commerce that you get attached in that way to it. And so people don't know how to separate it. In an era when there's this illusion that you actually are communicating with the person and they might write you back if you send a compelling DM. I've been talking about this lately even with DIY artists in the context of talking about or showing them this film. Don't respond to the DMs from fans because it's a slippery slope. I don't know if you deal with this at all in your interacting with people who contact you. But, sometimes people will tell an artist, your music saved my life, is a thing that they tell you. And, of course, you're especially early on, you're so moved and you feel moved to respond and you think it's important to respond. And then they've got you.
And you're always going to feel that pressure to reply to the other thing. And they've got a direct line.
Yeah. And you don't know if they're telling you the truth. You don't know if they're mentally stable or not. And then how can you even tell who should you respond to and who shouldn't you? And I don't envy people who deal with that.
Yeah, because it's tricky because there are beautiful moments that can come from building that community. And if 99 out of 100 are that way, is it worth the one that goes Fegan?
Yeah, exactly. Can you wall yourself off completely and not be open to meaningful, worthwhile, authentic interactions with people?
They want people to hear it and respond. It's that weird catch-22 of the whole situation.
Put a wall between it.
And you're required by all of the people who handle your career more now than ever, and especially for young people who they've only grown up on the internet and social media. Their managers and their publicists and their labels are annoying the shit out of them to be posting and to be talking into the camera and to be making themselves relatable. And it's oppressive the way that these people behind the artist or public person enforce this requirement, even when the artist is like, I don't have anything more to say. They're like, you need to post more. And that's making them vulnerable. And it's just asking them to do this extra emotional labor that is not what they signed up for or even the thing that they're good at.
The movie, Fanatical, The Catfishing of Tegan and Sara, is out now. Depending on where you are in the world, you can watch it in different places. In America, it's on Hulu. Elsewhere, just Google it, I guess. As one review noted, digital abuse is always a gripping theme, especially given the rise in awareness of online bullying. But what makes Fanatical uniquely compelling is the charismatic presence of Tegan, whom the camera loves, and whose distress at how she and her fans were exploited feels wholly authentic.
Did you show your therapist the film?
No. I don't know if my therapist would watch the film. I don't think that she wants to see me through the filter of public versions of me. But we talk about this a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I hope she doesn't watch the film.
I've tried to get my therapist to come to both my documentaries, and they just won't.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. Well, this is the thing, is that ultimately you should have the option to consent to your therapist showing up at a show.
I want them to go because I'm like, I'd rather, than explaining it to them what's been going on. I'm just like, here it is in 90 minutes. Watch it. Then we can talk about it.
But so that's really interesting because I have the opposite feeling where I feel as if I'm aware that this is a public conversation, and so the conversation we're having is as real as I can be. But if there were no microphones in front of us, I would be telling you different things.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that isn't the most. It is filtered, and so I don't think my therapist could get a real version of me from that. But you feel differently.
I just get so impatient, and I feel like I just want them to see this thing, and then we can talk about it. But I completely agree with you. It is filtered. That documentary is filtered through a lens.
Yeah.
And so maybe my therapist is right and I'm wrong, which would be unheard of. That night, after our interview, I go to the premiere of the doc at Vidiots, a cinema that I love. There's a Q&A after, and Jenny moderates it. As she wraps up, she tells people to sit for a moment while Tegan and Sara get out first.
Thank you all so much for coming. We're going to if you guys can just chill here so we can get Tegan and Sara safely out of the venue. Where are we going? And then you're all welcome to leave.
2 security guards escort the sisters out before the crowd's allowed to get up and leave. Before I watched this doc, I would have thought this was paranoia. Now I realize I'd probably have done exactly the same thing in their position. I think it actually kind of snapped into focus for me at the end of that doc where 2 security guards came in and took them out. And I was like, oh yeah, these are 2 people that are still quite freaked out that there is this person out there who is messing with their fan base and they still need to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, the fandom thing, I think, is tricky.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit after they left the interview, right? Like trying to figure out what a healthy level of engagement is and when it gets unhealthy.
Well, because so much of what you do as an artist is this creative outlet that you hope people connect to. And you kind of need that dialogue. Most artists that I like, there is that dialogue with their audience.
Yeah, it's a back and forth in a way. Yeah.
And I think it makes it a little trickier because they're female. It adds this extra predatory layer.
I think you're completely right. I think, being a female artist and engaging with your DMs is a vastly different experience than being a male artist opening up your DMs.
Because I've seen that. I had a good friend that was dating a pop singer, not at a crazy level, little venues, and she had to have security because fans were in love with her.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing, as a musician, and certainly in other creative fields as well, you're an artist, an actor, whatever, you are creating a connection with people and putting your art into the world. You are letting people relate to you. I mean, I think of people that I listen to and admire, and, it is about connection. I think where we're seeing problems now is people get so famous so quickly, and fans are unaware of that social boundary and that contract and what to do, and things can get out of control so quickly. I think it's different when you're talking about a massive artist. I think there's this room with an indie artist where dealing with fans can be almost like when Tegan and Sara started, when they're sending up bumper stickers. I think that world still exists for some people where engaging with fans can be a really rewarding thing.
That part of it is so necessary. That's what indie bands need and how they grow. There's this artist, Andrew McMahon, that he was in something corporate in Jack's Mannequin. And I know a lot of people that played in his band, and I've been around him for a while. And from the beginning, that guy stayed outside his tour bus. All the fans would line up, and he would sit and talk to every single one of them. And I feel like that was so much a part of why he had so much longevity as an artist, was that he had such a deep connection with all of his fans.
Yeah, and that was a part of it.
This was taken away from Tegan and Sara unfairly with this happening. Not that it really impacted doing great as artists.
Yeah, they're still amazing,
But it seems unfair and a shame.
It made them less confident to go and just stay outside the tour bus meeting fans.
They weren't safe doing that with this community of people that they brought together and built.
Yeah, completely.
And can't be free to enjoy that in a way that they should be able to. The fact that you could tell with Tegan, she had to develop this thick skin and toughness as a result of it, it seems.
Completely. Yeah, and have some sort of barrier there so that she could deal with all that communication. And I also think, you're right what you said earlier, I think so much of it has to do with literally what gender you are and that power play that happens there.
Yeah,
and it's almost what we were talking about earlier with being catfished as a male. Like, you get a picture of, so many of those scams are relying on getting a beautiful picture of someone and an idiot male brain going, oh, this person, hot, sexy, I will engage. And it's it is that level of male fandom to females can make it so much worse.
Yeah, the power difference.
Yeah.
We live in a world where that's unfortunately part of the dynamic of this.
Completely, which we'll never fully clock. What Fanatical is, it does some really interesting things, and hearing them talk to the potential catfisher is a wild conversation. But what Erin has done so well in the doc is captured how disruptive one person can be in fucking with so many people and turning certain people against other people who then turn against themselves.
Yeah, there's that one relationship with the other musician from their town that thought they were in a romantic relationship for a while and didn't believe that it wasn't Tegan.
Completely. And that created real rifts and real damage. And there are interviews in the doc that's why it's worth watching. It really gets to the center of how damaging this stuff can be. It's that thing where the emotional damage is almost worse than monetary loss because it just messes up your entire reality. And that's what so many of these catfishing schemes end up doing.
Well, let's hope neither one of us gets catfished anytime soon. I
really hope not. I like to think I'm savvy enough. I'm also aware that at one point I'm going to be an 80-year-old man. Technology and AI will have gotten insane.
You're going to be using your VR glasses.
I'll be on that
in a chat room and
and all my whatever limited money I have will be going to some person in Russia.
The avatar of this hot young stud that you're giving all your money to.
All of that is going to happen. I can see it. All right. A lot of feedback in, but just quickly before that happens, next week's the election. And as we mentioned in the last episode, and I'm just going to quickly reiterate it, on election night, we would love you to record where you are. There's 3 things we want you to do on your phone. Just go into the voice memo option. Just want you to record where you are in the night. Give us some context, where in the country, who you're with, what you're doing. And then the second thing we want you to do is talk to people there about how they're feeling.
Before the results
are there. Just get a feeling for the room. And then when it's kind of becoming obvious who's going to win, it may be a really drawn out thing, but it's probably going to be an indication of where things are going. Talk to them again. And the same question, how are you feeling about this? And those 3 voice memos, we want you to email to flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. That's flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. And the following week, we're going to incorporate those into the episode.
Some people made a good point. There's a very good likelihood that we won't know the results of the election the night of the election.
Totally.
Because it was a mindfuck last election 4 years ago. It looked like Trump was going to win. And then slowly the mail-in ballots came. Do we know if they resolved the timeline issues of this? Are we supposed to have more data the night of the election?
My God, it's a really good question. If it's going to be any difference or if it's going to be an equal level of chaos.
Because it took a week for them to certify the results.
So what should people do if it's, if it's 1 a.m. and think it's too close and we don't know?
I think that'll be an emotional experience again of fuck, it looks like...
You get that feedback. As people at your party are frustrated and they're leaving and they're leaving the bar and they're leaving your house, get that last bit from them about where their head's at.
Because it might be we record for the following Tuesday and we don't even know the winner yet.
Oh, God. This is such a...
We might have to record Monday morning.
Yeah, you're right.
For the Tuesday release.
For the Tuesday that's releasing.
Well, we'll have to record once we know the results are somewhat certified, but who fucking knows if in a week...
And I would like to acknowledge this isn't a strictly political podcast, but we should acknowledge how batshit everything is. So the idea of the episode in 2 weeks is just capturing a bit of the chaos of what this is all about.
Yeah, we want to give a picture of what America does on election night and the fact that there's been so much chaos the last few elections. Hopefully this is a little bit of a time capsule of what the 2024 election was.
And it feels like, I don't know what it's been in your lifetime, Rob, but it feels like increasingly everyone has opinions and is talking about politics. It's overwhelming here. Everywhere I turn, everything I listen to, every other podcast I listen to, it's all people are talking about.
Yeah. Is that a new
our
thing?
Bubble of people, or are there parts of America that are not talking about or thinking about this at all?
Or is it just our age? Now we're at an age where people give a fuck about politics. I think it's more extreme than it has been, but
it just feels like it permutates through every part of the culture. It's on the news, but it's also on every
SNL
part of TikTok.
And late night and
yeah.
Anyway,
the email is flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. Election night. Gather those things and just email those voice memos to us, and we're going to put together an episode about that. Feedback. It's so nice hearing from people that are listening to the show. We hear a lot of things. A lot of people sent in a link about Insane Clown Posse, who we did an episode about many episodes ago.
He endorsed...
He did.
Someone for president, right?
Violent J. Massive fan of Harris. So there you go. There's still feedback coming in about slime. The best bit of slime trivia came from Mark, who said, my fun fact is that Alanis Morissette, and yes, I know she's Canadian, okay, got her start on You Can't Do That on TV. And they also pointed out that when talking about oiled up or slimy performers, you definitely need to include any wrestler in the WWE.
True.
Although I guess it could be water, otherwise they'd never be able to get a hold of each other. Regardless, that organization could be its own Flightless Bird for sure. What is more American than the WWE? I could not agree more. We've talked in the past about doing a wrestling episode. We just haven't got our shit together. Steve from San Diego wrote in, and he said another link to slime in America is with those who play Dungeons and Dragons. Creatures either fully slime or slimy. There are many bad things in slime. Oozes, jelly, poison, stings, acid, etc. It's also one of the things that if it kills you and consumes all of your body parts, you can't get resurrected from. There is also the very famous gelatinous cube. We're getting into deep D&D stuff here, which embarrassingly I don't know about.
Embarrassing.
They sent, I wish I knew more about, because I was raised in quite a conservative Christian family. I wasn't allowed to do D&D.
Calvin did a D&D club at school for a little bit.
Did he love it?
He did. I don't know if they just stopped doing it or he picked something else instead. But
it would have been my jam because it's just about storytelling and imagination.
Yeah.
I'm going to include a few of the links that Steve sent in our show notes for this episode if you want to read more about the D&D stuff. And someone who wanted to stay anonymous wrote in saying, I'm a week behind. Up until very recently, I worked at Nickelodeon, and it's a whole thing. In fact, you don't get slimed when you get things wrong, or it's as a punishment. Being slimed is an honor.
Oh, they're still sliming people there?
They're still sliming people.
Wow. Even just like in a working environment?
Apparently.
Just like someone with a bucket?
I didn't know it was still happening. She said there are brand Bibles around it, many rules around usage, in particular ways you can get slimed in order not to make it inappropriate.
Wow.
So they've reacted to that dialogue. A company makes a proprietary formula. Am I saying that right?
Proprietary. Now I can't say it.
They make a formula that's only made for Nickelodeon. The way they set it up for the Kids' Choice Awards is particularly nuts because of how much they bring in. And she has offered to get us a bucket of authentic Nickelodeon slime. And I said, yes, please.
Yeah, we can slime each other if it's authentic Nickelodeon slime.
I'm going to talk to our human resources department about that.
To see what's allowed.
Okay, quickly. A lot of people, amazingly, Olive Garden has been by far our most listened to episode, which makes me very happy that people are listening.
It's
great.
It's just you put a lot of work into Spaceman Barry and Capital Punishment.
Yeah, I did. I felt so strongly about those, and then I sort of very quickly and haphazardly did an Olive Garden episode, and that by far was our biggest episode, which is great. I love it. People are listening. This is wonderful. Keep
it's encouraging, and I mean, I don't blame people like. You see Capital Punishment show up in your feed, and then you see Olive Garden. Like,
I feel that, and I feel we're living in such insane times. I am in no way shitting on anyone for wanting to listen to a silly episode. Mm-hmm. It's just my weird little brain is like, this episode's earnest.
We were texting about it and very confused of why is this outperforming
this one? So in regards to that Olive Garden episode, Mathematician Odd wrote in saying this episode is called Olive Garden, but it should be really called Fuck Off Starbucks, which I found very funny. Ari wrote in saying shots of vodka chased by OG salad dressing. How is this glossed over? David is a monster. I'd just like to say I'm not a monster. On my Instagram, I posted up the shot process.
Yeah, it looked disgusting.
It did look pretty gross. And also, we got a message, Rob, from Olive Garden PR.
Uh-oh.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Just wanted to drop you a line. I listened to the Olive Garden episode this morning, and it came out so well.
Oh, God.
I hope you're happy with the response you're getting from listeners. We are. They also said, let Rob know we'd be delighted. This is the cult. They're trying to get you in.
This is like Seventh-day Adventist where we're going to kill you with kindness.
True. We're so cynical, and they're like, we loved it. Let Rob know we'd be delighted to host him back. I know it's been a while since he's been to an Olive Garden. You can let him know that, believe it or not, Jimmy Fallon and Post Malone, and I will just say this is coming from Olive Garden, so I don't know if we can trust them. Look, maybe I'm just their mouthpiece now, but I'm going to read it. Believe it or not, Jimmy Fallon and Post Malone weren't paid anything. They really are fans. There's no sponsorship for those late night segments at all. It's honestly a dream to be able to work at a company that inspires the level of fandom that Olive Garden does.
There's some backdoor shit happening if it's not a sponsorship.
I think they just like it.
I don't buy it.
David, when did you sell out? I think it was around that Olive Garden episode.
You wearing that
you
Olive
just started
Garden
reading out the PR that they sent you?
That sweater you're wearing. You got those high socks on too.
Also got some feedback from Brittany in regards to me slagging off Starbucks in that Olive Garden episode. They just let me know there's apparently someone called Winter, and his goal is to visit every single Starbucks in the world. His total count right now is 19,800 stores. He calls it Starbucking. And they say, I think he's got some great insights on Starbucks, both in America and all over the world. So I'm going to reach out to him. Look, I find Starbucks a very funny company. I think not great union-wise, and I want to look into that. But I do find that as a bit of Americana, I find them very funny / appealing. And I have had, they make a flat white.
And I've been to a lot of Starbucks. It's like Olive Garden.
It's
when I'm on a road trip and going through
what
towns,
they are.
like I'm getting Starbucks.
Totally, you know what they are. It's default, and they have a toilet as well.
Yes, great toilets.
Yeah, get the code.
Speaking of chains, I did see feedback about my pronunciation of Chipotle.
Wait, so
yeah,
so I would say,
yeah. What do you call that place?
Because we definitely don't have the New Zealand. I'd say Chipotle.
Chipotle.
Let's go to Chipotle.
Chipotle. I don't know how I said it or how I say it.
What did people accuse you of? You did it wrong.
Some people defended me that it was a Midwestern thing. That they were like, that's how I say it.
Okay, so invite me to this restaurant.
Would you like to go to Chipotle?
Yeah, I'd love to go to Chipotle.
Maybe my T wasn't as pronounced as it needed to be, and it was Chipotle.
Oh, you might have dropped the T. Chipotle.
Maybe, which is maybe a Midwest thing. But
yeah, right. One thing I've learned doing this show is that different parts of America are so, look, I'm going to say a very obvious thing, very different.
Yeah.
And I love that about this country. All right. Thanks for listening. Very keen to hear about any catfishing stories you have. Even since putting that documentary together, I've heard from people with more catfishing stories. There are so many out there. So feel free to get in touch. And again, when it comes to election night, just start thinking about where you're going to be and how you're going to talk to people there, because we would love your voice. All right. We'll see you next week. And as usual, stick around for Calvin.
Do you know what catfishing is?
Yeah.
What is it?
A fish with whiskers, kind of like a cat.
What do you think it means if you catfish someone?
I don't know. Turn into a catfish? Like and subscribe. Please don't catfish me.